Two Cats and a Bunny. Hey, that is actually a show. Two Cats and a Bunny. Superman versus Homelander. Who wins?
If you hear any noise, it's just us watching The Boys and wondering if Homelander could take on Superman in a fight. Let's see if we can find out. Homelander is the powerful satire of superheroes like Captain America and Superman in Garth Ennis's The Boys, now in its second season on Amazon Prime. How well does the satire stand up to the real thing? Does DC's big Boy Scout have what it takes to take on the Seven's big bully? Let's see how these superheroes match up and who would come out on top. Homelander is a golden age ideal of what a superhero is, at least on the surface. He's powerful, he's charming, he's good-looking, and he's an ideal. Just like how Superman fights for truth, justice, and the American way, and Captain America fights for the ideals of the flag he wears, even if sometimes he has to struggle with that, Homelander drapes himself in a patriotic ideal. Just like Garth Ennis's other creation, Preacher, all of that ideal is pretty twisted. Homelander is a take on what that idealistic superhero is really like when the lights are off and the microphone's packed away. While Homelander shares Captain America's patriotic roots and chemical origins, his power set is decidedly Kryptonian, which of course makes us want to know who would win in a fight. Homelander has all the highlights. Faster than a speeding bullet? Check. Able to fly? Check. Nigh invulnerability? Check. Super strength? Oh yeah. And of course, there's those eye beams. Any one of those powers would be enough to build a superhero on, but Superman and Homelander subscribe to the go big or go home philosophy when it comes to their powers. Superman, of course, has decades of development that makes it both easy and difficult to quantify exactly how powerful he really is. In his early years, leaping tall buildings in a single bound wasn't understating his abilities. Superman's power was literally to leap really far, similar to the Hulk. Also similar to the Hulk, he wasn't damage resistant, but not entirely invulnerable. Over time, Superman's powers ratcheted up, and writers would add new powers as needed. Soon, Superman was not only able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, but he was able to fly into space as long as there's a nearby yellow sun. He went from resisting damage to shrugging off explosions. There are some powers that Superman has picked up that maybe haven't stood the test of time. The Richard Donner Superman, starring Christopher Reeves, had Supes flying so fast around the world that he went back in time and used his Superman symbol as some sort of weird super cellophane. For the purposes of this fight, though, let's focus on the powers that have staying power. It's this latter-day all-powerful Superman that Homelander is satirizing. Both Superman and Captain America are premised on the notion that noble people with these powers can be a force for good and a symbol of hope. Ennis premises Homelander on the idea that the amount of power they have would inherently corrupt the person who had them. So far, we've seen Homelander perform most of the feats. Though certainly more gruesome than we're used to seeing when Superman does it, his eye beams seem to have the same power to cut through just about anything, including shooting down an airplane. During a failed attempt to rescue a hijacked airplane, he suggests that he can't carry the airplane down, which has been suggested as a restraint in his powers.
Can do that.
But that's more than likely an adjustment on Ennis's part of what we'll call superhero physics. For the most part, superhero powers work because they need to work in order for the superhero story to exist. But the amount of those physics that apply and don't apply vary from book to book. So then, let's assume that Homelander is at least equivalent in strength to Superman, just that he lives in a world where aerodynamics and structural rigidity are bigger factors. As it stands, it seems like a pretty one-to-one fight, but there are some differences that are important to consider. There are 3 superhero origin stories that everyone knows, even if they've never read a single comic book.
True.
Peter Parker was bitten by a radioactive spider. Bruce Wayne's parents were murdered in front of him, and Superman was sent from the planet Krypton by his parents right before the planet exploded. Here on Earth, the yellow sun gives Superman his powers. That's a pretty handy deal and a cool origin story. So cool, in fact, that Homelander adopted it. As far as anyone else knows, Homelander has the same story. He's a being from another world who landed on Earth, and just like Superman, he was raised by a nice, wholesome Midwestern family. Except not so much.
Season 3.
Instead, like Captain America, Homelander is a
Learn
regular
more.
old human who has been infused with a super soldier serum, in this case Compound V. The comic book origin of Compound V is even more strikingly familiar to Captain America's origins, being the creation of a scientist who was being forced to work for Hydra before fleeing to America to give them the serum. The Amazon show simplifies the origins of Compound V, but the principle remains the same. Unlike the super soldier serum from Marvel, Compound V still exists and creates all the soups of the world of the boys. This also means that just like Captain America, there's no need to recharge the formula. Once a super soldier, always a super soldier. Superman does need to recharge his powers, but then he has the benefit of being powered by the same thing that's powering our entire ecosystem.
Yep.
Good old-fashioned sunlight. If the sun goes red or he has to eat a nuclear explosion, he might use up enough of that power to need a recharge. But for the most part, he's an always-on light bulb of power, punching hope for a better world. The need to absorb the rays of the yellow sun isn't the only difference between Homelander and Superman. As we know, Superman has gotten more and more powerful over time, which makes it hard for Superman to be challenged by mere mortals like Lex Luthor and the Toyman. To give the villains a fighting chance, the idea of kryptonite was introduced first in the radio serials, then formally in a 1949 issue of Superman. Since then, kryptonite has been used as a way to describe someone's ultimate weakness. So what is Homelander's kryptonite? Well, according to The Boys showrunner Eric Kripke, Homelander's weakness is his own shattered psyche. His insecurities and troubled relationship to his own humanity makes him easy to manipulate and doubt himself. There's a flip side to that, though, in that it also makes him highly unstable and prone to rash actions. So it's not necessarily a weakness that you'd want to exploit. Alright, enough pre-fight and tales of the tape. Let's get this show on the road. Superman and Homelander have one more similarity. They've both gone off the rails and decided that they should be in charge of the whole thing and attacked the White House. For Superman, it usually takes the death of Lois Lane. Homelander does it because he's pretty much nuts and his own disassociation with regular people or any scope of his powers. That takes fewer steps and less Elseworlds manipulation, so let's assume a Crisis-style clash of realities events where Superman sees the darker version of himself breaking bad and decides to step in. Why is the setup important? Well, it has to do with how both of them use their powers. Both Homelander and Superman have to hold back most of the time. For Homelander, he has to maintain the veneer of being a good guy. For Superman, he has a genuine concern that his power can overwhelm the people of his adopted home. In both scenarios, where the big heroes decide to take charge, the gloves are off. No more holding back. Once Homelander has decided to take charge, he can go full blast. This gives him access to the less honorable uses of his powers, like boiling somebody's brain with his eye beams. This is an important advantage because unlike Superman, Homelander doesn't regularly fight anyone who might be a challenge. When Superman crosses the Great Reality Divide, it'll be the first formidable foe that Homelander will ever meet. If he's going to stand a chance, he's gonna have to be unrestrained. The problem, of course, is that Superman has encountered that kind of brutality before, and it really eats at him. Homelander will almost certainly use Superman's concern for bystanders against him, much like General Zod did in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel.
Every villain does that.
Zod forced Superman's hand, but given the choice between killing Zod or letting him continue to kill bystanders, Superman was forced to kill Zod. Not every fan's favorite choice, including Superman. It wasn't easy for Superman to overpower Zod to get to that point, so Homelander's brutality could outstrip even Zod's, giving him the edge. But there's another problem. Zod was one of Superman's own. Superman will always try to find the best in people, and the ability to connect with his own kind, he'll go that extra mile. After all, there are only a handful of Kryptonians in the universe. Homelander, on the other hand, is a corruption of everything Superman stands for, and that's the kind of thing that makes him mad. There's one other example of Superman that comes into play here, and that's in the finale of the animated Justice League where Superman fights Darkseid. In that fight, Superman gives his famous World of Cardboard speech, where he explains that if he lets loose even a little bit, the results could be devastating. But with Darkseid, he doesn't have to hold back. He can take it. Since Homelander would be prone to doing collateral damage to try and weaken his opponent, he might make the mistake of doing something like killing Lois Lane. At that point, Homelander might find himself on the receiving end of a self-righteous beatdown fueled by someone finally getting to throw a real punch. At that point, the question is whether or not Superman will pull back before he ends up killing Homelander altogether. If comic books have taught us anything, though, that victory just means that Superman just has a new supervillain, regardless of if he goes all the way, since no one stays dead in comics. Superman's real issue comes when he finds out what Black Noir was created for. So that's it.
Black Noir, the one guy. Oh, I can't even spoil. Like, this video was made in season 2, so he has no idea what happened in season 3 and what happened
We're calling it for Super
Black Noir and Homelander, where he comes from and his origin story. So that's why it's an older video. He definitely does need an update for this video with these information added. What do you think, guys? Who would win in a fight, Superman versus Homelander? I, in my opinion, think that Superman would win, but definitely Homelander is not gonna go down easy, and he will use everything against him, all the things that he mentioned in this video. But yeah, of course I would root for Superman, but honestly, Homelander is such a good character. He's a villain, but from his origin story and the history, you kind of feel for him. You understand him, but also he's an asshole. Like, no, like whatever he's doing is not justified. He's such a good. He's a villain. He's not anti-hero. He's 100% a villain. Anti-hero are people who are just care about themselves, kind of like they're in the middle. You know, they're not bad, but they're not good either. You know, this guy's bad. He is bad, but he just doesn't understand that he's bad. That's the thing. All right.